the suppliers of your supplier. Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons why it can be a bit nuanced. And the second thing is the format in which you want to gather your data. Do you want to gather it in a on a per unit basis in CO2 equivalent or whatever? It can be a little technical. So usually what we encourage and we urge a lot of people to do it is to just get a carbon footprint analysis done. And there's an ISO method if you want to get a life cycle assessment done, which is on the product base. Then you can use ISO 14040, which is like a carbon footprint life cycle assessment. So it checks your life cycle, your products, life cycles, carbon emissions in kgs of CO2 equivalent. Or you could do a general factory level GHG emissions study as well. And a third party is always best for it because once you do it, then it becomes much easier to set targets and know what you're measuring and all. So the setting targets bit is the more complicated bit because that requires kind of information, like it requires more expertise and stuff. That's where the science-based targets come in, etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, Khwaja, do you use technology to help you in measuring the carbon footprint? Is there a technological mechanism for doing this, or when you say you use the ISO methodology and rely upon an agency, I mean, how does it work scientifically? What technology are you using?
So they have certain formulas which convert a certain amount. Like if like you have burnt 100 meter cube of natural gas with a certain calorific value, then you know how many tons of carbon dioxide you emitted based on a formula and a calculation. But usually your generators, your cars, they have measurement tools within them, like a SCADA, or in the case of
Right,
a car, you have the mileage meters. So really what you just get is an Excel sheet which you have to fill up. And then the
right,
teams in can fill those up because you have registers already maintaining all the data, so it isn't too complicated, honestly.
right,
For
right.
scope one,
Okay.
for scope two and
Yeah.
three, then it gets a bit more complicated. And I'm sure I don't know the depths of it either because I just know the general concept. But yeah.
And then if you do scope 2 and 3, where you include your entire value chain, obviously, the figures are going to go much higher. Yeah.
Hmm. It will be for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
Arif, just one thing I want to add, since we are not like brands, we are basically manufacturers, most of us here. So for us, scope one remains the area where we have the most impact. So when you talk in terms of the brand, measurement of their greenhouse gas emissions, for them, scope one is relatively less as compared to scope two and scope three. But for us, maybe 95% of overall greenhouse gas emissions will lie in scope one. And as vertical manufacturers, even that scope becomes quite high. So even if we are able to manage our scope one emissions, scope two and scope three remains relatively less. It might be around, say, for instance, 5 to 7%. The rest of it is something that we can easily control. And that is why, when I say that I'm very optimistic in terms of carbon management of the impact that we are creating, is because most of us lie within the owned and operated facilities of the company itself. So that becomes relatively easy. And then, coming back to the point of measurement, obviously it's a very important thing because you cannot make any progress when you don't measure it. And we have industry specific tools. So, when I talk about the fashion industry, or when I talk about the textile industry in particular, we have industry specific tools like, Higg Index and, all these the tools where you can actually map out your carbon performance. But then there are platforms like CDP or carbon disclosure projects, which are cross industry and where you can actually kind of compare your carbon emissions to industries that are coming across industry that are not related to fashion. So you can compare your performance there as well. So I think, you have to kind of start mapping your carbon performance on industry specific tools as well, but also that is something more generic that, generally, globally people can read and understand. So I think that is important, and that is a direction that everyone should take in terms of tracking and measurement.
So that sounds, I think we got a pretty clear idea on what scope, how companies are going towards scope 1 and 2 and 3. Scope 2 is obviously indirect emissions from electricity. So has anybody had any experience in dealing with what the government figures are for the indirect emissions from electricity?
So Nazish, it's not like government gives any estimates in terms of scope 2. Every company estimate their own scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. So when we talk about, for example, Artistic Millionaires, every mission that takes place within our owned and operated facilities are scope 1 emissions, and scope 2 is from purchased steam and electricity. So whatever purchased steam or electricity that you are, your companies are in their emissions is from national grid, right? And the national grid is being run by, coal or fossil fuels. Then that comes under my scope 2 emissions. And then, my power to control it is very less because I cannot control how the government decides to generate electricity. So, that becomes a problem. And that is why, we cannot do everything on our own. We have to influence the government to start creating electricity using, more.
Or there has to be more competition.
So, everything.
Yep.
Or there has to be more competition to allow you to choose renewable energy versus non-renewable energy. Yep. So, at the moment, you don't
That's
have
correct. There should be an option.
Yeah.
If there's no, yeah, I don't have an option. But adding to here, I would like to say that, there's a lot going on in terms of renewable energy market in Pakistan as well. And some of you might be knowing that Pakistan is investing a lot in renewable energy, especially in the Sindh region, where there is one of the worst top-rated wind corridor in the Chimpi region. A lot of companies are investing in wind plants, in wind energy plants, and we're also investing in solar energy plants. And there's a lot going on in terms of investing in hydro plants of country. And Artistic Minerals also has a subsidiary company called Artistic Energy, where we are investing in renewable energy plants. So we already have 100 megawatt of wind power plant in Chimpir, and we already have, a start. We have already started working. It feeds into the national grid, and when the time comes and the national grid is composed of more renewable energy as compared to fossil fuel energy, then we will have the power to control scope 2 emissions. But right now, as we buy off the grid, we cannot do anything much about it because the grid is fed on fossil fuels. So you see, this is all very much linked, and a company can only control, can only do so much when it doesn't anything in silo. But when you collaborate with the government and when you drive the overall agenda, then you are able to get more, more work done.
All right. Okay, so I think we'll go on to the next slide, next part of our discussion, and then sort of, since we're running over time, sort of get a conclusive remark from all our participants here. Action, what will I do? I mean, I think, Faiza, since you've just been, you could start and then we could go on to others as well.
I think if you're talking about it as a person, or are you talking about it as a person or as the company representative?
Here, I think we can talk about as a person.
Okay, so I think we can start by talking about climate crisis, and even though I think the time for incremental changes is like far gone, and we have to talk about transformative changes. But it's still, we can talk about climate crisis and create awareness about it, and little things in terms of not using plastic bottles or not wasting papers. This is something that we at individual levels can do. And if you're in a position of power, or if you're in a position to influence decision makers, then you should push for a climate agenda within your company. So this is something where you can start off.
All right. Masood Saab, then we'll have Asad as well, and then other participants as well. Masood Saab, we can't hear you. Ji, Masood Saab?
You have to unmute yourself, Masood Saab. You're still on mute. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
It's okay.
Okay.
And no, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, loud and clear.
Thank you. So actually, I'm of the view that we have to do whatever we can do. And you know very well that government has their own agendas and they go by their own will. And I just want to share something that the multinationals, big multinationals, especially we are working with the what's top company which is called Adidas for sporting goods. So there we have to tell them if I produce a football or bag or something else, so per ball, how much electricity we are using. So then they gave us a target, okay, for example, you have using 20 watts for one ball, and then next target is to go to 15 watts. And this is here we have to bring solar energy and that kind of energy. So the pressure is not only by the government, the pressure is international now. And then we have to really look on different things. We have to use the machines which use less electricity. And then we have to use a lot of solar and other renewable energy. And then we have to use certain materials which is already sustainable, or we have to use our waste also to recycle it. And everything is now measurable, and we have to tell our customer that, okay, this we are doing. And then they gave us, this is not only with us, but all the multinationals, they are very much focusing these things. And this is why we have to be very specific, especially this kind of discussion should be done at a much wider platform also. We are very few people here. I think that we should have been maybe 50 or 100 people in this kind of discussion, but unfortunately we are very few. So this awareness should be given to all the big companies also, because multinational companies are now looking very strongly in these things, and they are measuring everything. Maybe in the next year or very soon, they will be measuring how much electricity being used. For example, in your shirt, how much dyes has been used, and where the water has gone. Now, actually, they want waterless dyeing now, you know, so no water is to be used. So everything has to be sustainable, recycled, and also less carbon prints means less electricity, and these kind of things. Things are now moving in a direction that we have. Everybody is giving us means the industry a different, very stringent type of targets, and the industry should be ready for these kind of things. Otherwise, this will be difficult to work on an international platform. Nowadays, due to Corona, these things are not so severe. But as soon this Corona is going to finish, this will be coming in a very, very hard way to everybody. Thank you.
There's an interesting point Masood Saab made, is that he spoke about the multinationals requiring measurement. The other area that is very important, becoming very important, is the idea of investors now looking at businesses which are more sustainable as well. So to attract investment from abroad, I think it's a direction that we should be taking as well. Asad, could you point to an action on what you can do?
Sure. I think it's important. What I will do as an individual and as a business leader is educate myself and my team and recognize my privilege, and both as a man as well as a business leader, and act on that to to prepare for a more inclusive and sustainable world. I think that's the, broadly speaking, way forward.
Okay.
I
Okay.
actually have to run as well.
So it's a make my phone call.
Okay. Thank you,
So
Asad, for your time.
I'm gonna go. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
to
Asad. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you everyone
Bye.
else.
Thank you for your
Bye.
time. Bye. Ali Salim and Aisha, would anybody else would you like to add what you could do?
Well, yes, Nazish, thank you for asking me to. Definitely, as an individual, like I said, I like to educate myself and my team, right? That is the first thing we do. As I mentioned earlier, use of paper, that's a concern. And secondly, use of plastic too, right? So as an individual and as a representative of this company, I'll take this initiative to use less paper and to avoid use of plastic, and to make sure that the plastic is reused and recycled for a productive, for more productive, in more productive ways, right? So that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Aisha, Ariba Shahid, Munib, Kekrishan? Actions on what you can do?
Yes, I guess by powering our vicinity, by saving the energy around us, powering our homes and vicinity with renewable energy, and investing in more energy efficient equipment and stuff, and reducing the water wastage, and by reading and learning more and applying it on self and our surroundings, and gladly being part of an already environment conscious organization, MG Parallel, I think on our own and on collectively, we would like to conserve as much as we can. This is what we'll be doing.
All right. Thank you, Kekrishan. It's obviously conservation is the need of the hour. Yep. So, Arif, would you like to sum up? Sorry, Arif, you're.
I unmute myself. Thank you very much to all the participants. What we will do next is to capture the messages that you've made. You made some very, very interesting points, and right from what's happening in the textile world, how they're adapting, how they're mitigating against climate change, right through to the sports sector. Fajr explained how they are measuring the carbon emissions across their products, across their fleet of cars and their transport. Ali, I think, made a point which was made in our roundtable this morning about reducing the usage of paper. Are we going at a fast speed towards a paperless financial management, a paperless taxation system, a paperless regulatory system? So I think that's really important, and how we're using technology. So what we'll do is we'll capture your messages, we'll put it on our hub that we are doing together, and Nazish and I will also reach out to you to sort of validate your messages into a call for action. And we'll certainly invite you all back later on in the year to look at those actions that we have collated together. So thank you all very much, and I hope to see you again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji. Khudafis. Thank you.
Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah
Thank you,
Hafiz.
everyone.
Thank you.
Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.
Everyone.